Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Head to Heart series from eVidyaloka Trust. eVidyaloka is a not-for-profit social enterprise. We've been around for about 10 years and we look and we do education for children in around 245 villages across 11 states, from Uttarakhand in the north right down to Kanyakumari in the south. We deliver about 1 million child learning hours every year to over 20,000 children. And we are supported by some excellent organizations from across the world. Today, we have with us Naren Jawaharni. Naren is a chartered accountant. He has spent the last 17 years of his 3 decades career in the BPO and shared services industry. He is currently the managing director of Vistra Shared Services Center in India. And Vistra Shared Service Center is owned by the Vistra Group and Barings Asia Private Equity. Prior to joining Vistra, Naren was the CEO of the Shared Service Center of Lafarge Holcim, the largest cement conglomerate in the world. Naren has occupied really very senior positions in companies like Datamatics, RSM McGladrey, the Prasad Group, Eureka Forbes, Britannia Industries, and PricewaterhouseCoopers, amongst others. He brings with himself significant experience. But what I know of Naren personally are 2 fantastic aspects. One is his focus on customer, and second, his focus on his team members. Welcome, Naren, to the Head to Heart series of eVidyaloka.
Thank you so much, Ravi. Thank you for this kind words and introductions. It's always a pleasure, talking to you and meeting you. Of course, this time virtually, otherwise in person when I was in Bangalore. And I'm actually delighted and honored to be, being part of this initiative which you are doing, Head to Heart, and especially the kind of work your organization is doing and the efforts you put in eVidyaloka. You talked about 20,000 children, 11 states, and 245 different villages. This is amazing work. It's very inspiring, Ravi. And in whatever way, I would love to be a part of this the great mission which you're carrying on. So thank you.
Thank you, Naren. Naren, how I thought I will handle this session was to ask you a few questions initially, and then based on your response, maybe more questions would come up.
Sure.
Your career, which is a long, distinguished career of 3 decades, has seen you move from manufacturing to the services as well. The last 17 years, you have been in shared services, BPO. Both seeing the commercial side, which is the BPO aspect, as well as global in-house centers, GICs. So if you look at how manufacturing companies approach shared services and service companies approach shared services, what are some of the differences that strike you?
Yeah. So I think I really have a privilege of working with both the services industry as in manufacturing, not only in share service center, even my earlier stint before the BPO and share service center. Like for example, I was with Britannia, which was a hardcore manufacturing company, and then you're with Eureka Forbes, which is more like a services company. So they are actually 2 poles apart. From a share service perspective, yes, at the end delivery you have to do. But I think from an entire work perspective, manufacturing is far more complex, I would say. So it involves like right from procurement to supply chain to production, warehouse and logistic, and inventory, the valuation. So it is far more complex, and also transitioning the processes from the manufacturing companies, or I would say the processes, is requires much more detailed planning and knowledge. Whereas the services industry, be it financial services industry, or be it other back office, is far more easier. It's more process driven. They are already set processes. In manufacturing, I've seen there are not many SLAs and processes in terms to when it comes to the work is concerned. So that way they are pull apart. But yes, I would say in some areas, services industry is more complex. For example, in production, you have fixed product which you have 10, 12, 15 products. Whereas service industry, you could have large services product. So that way, keeping the track of those products and then the valuation, it could be a little bit, or the costing or the profitability could be a little complex in terms when it comes to number of product. Other than that, I would say it well. And but manufacturing also is a good fun because involves end to end cycle, which you normally don't tend to see. You only hear in the books or you read about them. So it is good fun to be part of the manufacturing, share service center or any organization which is into manufacturing. And these places tend to be more in remote area, and the labor requirement, even from a share service perspective, is also different. So for example, for manufacturing share service center, you need the people with more depth of process knowledge of that industry, whereas services industry, you could by and large can easily train or trainable resources and more a white collar resources. So
Correct.
this is a fundamental difference, I would say, between the two sectors.
Excellent. See, what I've seen of the BPO industry or the shared services industry itself is that it is people intensive. Apart from process customer, it's very people intensive, and you end up leading very large multicultural organizations which are spread fairly widely across geographies as well.
Right.
So, I've always seen you and known you as a person who's absolutely people driven. So, what are some of the things that you have done to build high performance teams, one, and secondly, to keep these large teams, such large teams, totally engaged, because these are different generations and you need to engage them in different ways. So what do you do about building high performance teams, and what do you do to keep these large teams engaged?
I think you broached on a topic which is very close to my heart, Ravi. And especially in share service or BPO, people are your only assets. In other manufacturing, say for example, cement, you have plants, you have machinery, and you have so many other things to do. But inventory is there, logistic. But here, people are the only assets. So I think I treat them. I would say I have a different approach to treating the people and managing them, because considering they are your assets. So some of the things which I would say which has really worked, if I was to look back in my career, and in fact, I had this flair for managing people and interacting and communicating with them. And for that, I specifically came to the share service and BPO industry when I was 17 years back, working on a different company and industry. And then at that juncture, I had a couple of options to, see my careers in next 10, 15 years. And I chose the BPO industry and share service because it involves people. And I love to interact with people. I love to, talk to them and see them achieving greater heights. So this is by choice that I came into BPO and share service and industry, because I really love doing it. Some of the things which I feel have really worked well in terms of building teams and keeping them together. I think one is, I would say, is the communication. You always need to be communicating with the teams. Always. I never lose an opportunity. So some teams I communicate weekly basis, some on a monthly, and some on a quarterly basis, this helps build collaborations. This helps builds team spirit. So I would say it's never too much to communicate with the people. So that's one area I would say I would like to do that. And other is team building. Team building, constantly. Maybe I would say a weekly kind of and monthly activity, depending on the group. It's really helps you to keep team together, bring the team spirit, and the competitive spirit and alignment of the goals and purpose. So I think working on a team building activities has also been very productive. The other areas I would say I would have been is driving them. And as you asked me, what keeps them engaged? I think giving them a good project or a common goal or a purpose to work on. But that's easy because you could treat them well. You can, in a shared service industry, spoil them with coffees and foods and cafeterias. But then beyond a point, it is the work, the purpose, the goal they are striving, Ravi, that makes
Absolutely
them
correct.
look forward to it. So I think based on their strength, love to gives various challenge them with different projects and different concepts, and I've seen fantastic results. uh, and they will work as a team together. They brainstorm and they do, I think, work and give results which we can't imagine. It's far better than you and me sitting there putting our head and doing it. So I think that's really keeps them going, and then celebrating every win, every success, so that when they achieve, never miss an opportunity. Whenever they achieve something small or big, okay, I love to celebrate with them. Okay, create that positivity around that keeps the excitement going, that keeps the momentum going, and then they also strive to do bigger things. So every success, if you celebrate, then I think you build on it. Okay, so that I would
Correct.
say is one of the areas which I love to do that. And also involve them in decision making, Ravi. I think wherever possible, involve them in decision making and strategy when it comes to improving the quality of service or any problem which we have. So a collaborative approach always helps. So these are some of the areas which keeps them engaged and also help them deliver more. And last but not the least is also taking interest in their personal and professional development. So if they have personal challenges, talk to them, sort it out, help them. You see, on professional side, I recommend a lot of books which I like to read, and I recommend them, and I think they always appreciate. Many times recommend, sometime give them the books to read, and various blogs, various I would say the authors which are there, which keep, or seminars which are there, which I either sponsor them or tell them to attend. So doing this has helped me. I think I am because of my people. I would say without them I wouldn't be here, and all the credit and success, I would say, for bringing me here. I think at senior level we do get a lot of applause and a lot of credit, but I would say it is all because of the team which is working behind us, with us, and always supporting us.
Fantastic. No, when you mentioned communication, I was, smiling because I've seen you walk the floor
Hmm.
every day. As a habit, you would walk the floor, talk to people out there who are working over there. You're not sitting in your office separately doing something. And that's a practice which I thought was a fantastic way of just not only engaging the people, but just breaking down any barriers that can come up, and so they'll be willing to come and talk to you if there are issues. I saw you doing that. Have you had any incident? Can you remember any incident when you were walking the floor, which you thought changed the life of someone else, or change your own perspective of something?
Yeah, I think You're right, Ravi. I think walking the floor really helps. Keeping arm on the shoulders, and when the chips are down, or when they are celebrating, they are happy. You join them in their celebration. One particular incident, I think I do remember it was there, and I think I saw a person on his desk with his head down, and which is very unusual. Never happens when in a working hours. And then I just sat next to him and put a arm around his shoulder, and I say, "Okay, all good. I mean, are you not feeling well? And kind of, is there something we could do for you in terms of health?" But I think later on came to know it wasn't that he was not well, but there was some mail which he got, which was very unpleasant, and maybe something had wrong had happened in terms of, in this transaction industry, something can go wrong.
Correct. Correct.
So which he was worried and he was unhappy about it. So I think I called him and the manager. I said, okay, let's see what went wrong. What is that bothering you? So I think mistakes do happen, and is part of the learning curves. And it wasn't something big. I would say that something had happened, but the mail which he got from a customer, and I think unfortunately the customer was the internal. It was for a captive share service center. I think that language and that thing was not very professional, not very cordial. And I told him, while these errors happen, but that does not justify for these kind of languages and the words. I immediately picked up the phone and spoke to CFO, and I just passed on the mail. I say, I'm doing this to you, but this is not in a good taste, and I think it has demoralized my team and my manager. I think I we need to make sure that these things are not repeated. And nice of the CFO, I would say. I think he told me, Naren, don't worry about it. I'll investigate, and immediately call back. He saw the mail and he approached a person. And we had that person who was writing those nasty mail apologize to this staff, saying
Wow.
that I'm so sorry about it. And I think this happened in a couple of hours. I would say the reaction was good. So this, I think, really cheered up. It gave an impression, and also confidence to people that your leadership team is with you.
With you.
Okay.
Correct.
And they support you in when things are up, and also when the things are not looking so good. And the word went around, how it go flow goes to the floor.
Correct.
And it created a lot of positivity, saying that, okay, our company cares, our leadership team cares, and a lot of positive good will happen. And I think it cheered up the team, and also sent the right message to the other stakeholders within the client side, that this kind of attitude is not warranted and not justified. So I would say, just walking around, looking, meeting people, and talking to them, and genuinely
Caring for them.
caring for them, it does help. And as I said, we are in the people intensive business, and they are our only assets.
Correct. The other thing I've noticed about you is the customer centricity. See, in a shared services organization, especially if it's a global in-house center like the one that you were managing earlier, it is extremely difficult to get the attention of the key people leadership on the other side who happen to be your customers. Correct. You
Right.
may call them internal customers, but they are still customers. And in my opinion, they're actually
Absolutely.
more difficult than the external
Absolutely.
ones. In
Yeah,
my
you're
career, I
right.
have faced the internal customers are actually much more difficult to handle. Now, what are few things that you believe that have gone well for you over the years when you've dealt with such internal customers?
Yeah. So this is, Avi, again a very, very I would say a passionate kind of my value system. If I was to talk customer centricity, you are here because of your customers. They give you, whether it's a captive or whether it's a third party, they give you revenue, they give you purpose, and people make you deliver. So these are the two most important element of share service center. And you are absolutely right, captive is far more difficult. And I know when I was going through this process of Lafarge, and I was with Datamatics and earlier organization which was mostly third party, and where you feel that you are winning deals and you're meeting customers, they are visiting you, and you're every week meeting some customer or other. So I thought it'll be a cakewalk. Internal company, what, how many stakeholders you would have? And the search agency in fact told me, Naren, it's a lot of stakeholders. I say, boss, I've kind of meet 200 customers every year, and I brought in so many customers, so it's very easy. But they said, no, Naren, this is internal customer. I did time didn't realize, but I think yes, when I stepped into the Lafarge also, I do realize uh, the internal customers, which is captive share service, and is far more difficult. So having said that, but basic fundamentals of customer centricity remain the same, Ravi. I think
Correct.
you've done it all more than me, both captive and third party. So it's very, I think one is very important thing which I love to do is I treat them royally, because customer, as I said, customer is a king, as people say, and they give you the your money. So I treat them well. I treat them like royalty, if you were to ask me. Second thing is I would also like employees never miss a chance to meet customers. I'm happiest when I'm in front of my customer. You tell me 12 in the night, Naren, let's go and knock some doors or meet customers or talk to them. I'm happy to do that. So never miss an opportunity to meet them. Always connect with them, listen to them, listen to their requirement, follow through follow through constantly, because you at the end of it you also need to show your intent that while listening you're also taking care and delivering that. Okay. The other thing is managing the right expectation. So setting the right expectation, because invariably, especially so more so in India, where we say yes, okay, it'll be done, कल हो जाएगा, कर
I know
देंगे.
what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, though of course we have changed a lot because
Correct.
of the IT and share service center. So setting the right expectations, because where especially these international customers, when you say uh, you know Monday morning you need to tell them 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock or 2 o'clock, and you still need to stick to that thing. And also in terms of quality parameters, so setting the right expectations is very important with the customers. And one very fundamental thing is that irrespective of how much customer centricity a leadership team has, ultimately it has to percolate down the line. So my always first goal is to align the team, the customer centricity. Okay, NPS in the kind of organization, Net Promoter Score, it has to
True.
go down the line. And I have had people laughing at me, say, listen, and what are you talking about customer centricity, in the captive share service center? My CFOs, my CHROs, they are, but I think it's relevant. So it is important in any organization, be it manufacturing, services, or share service center. It has to be a DNA. I think what we should be doing, the customer centricity should be a DNA of the organization, that every person, the FTE at the level and associate level should also know how important is to retain customer, how difficult it is to bring the customer, okay, and how important it is to retain the customers. Because as they say that one satisfied customer may give you seven good customers, but one dissatisfied customer can give you maybe anyway 30 to 50 bad words or names in the market. So I think it's very important where the salespeople and everybody works hard to bring, and we should make sure that we retain the thing. So and the last but not the least is, irrespective of what you do, to connect with them, to make pamper them, and to listen to them, but service delivery is non-negotiable. Okay, we need to deliver. Your SLA has to be met. Okay, the team has to go an extra mile in spite of doing all the meetings and talking. We have to deliver, and that's the main purpose, the relationship we have with the customer. So these are some of the areas I would say uh, which I really strive to work, and have given me good results.
Excellent. Excellent. See, in my own experience in terms of managing shared service centers, one of the things that I've always seen is that while we focus at the center, we focus on SLAs and outputs. The customer is more focused on outcomes.
Absolutely.
Correct. So actually, I'll give you an example. There was this organization in Europe, which we were supporting for sales primarily, and we would have a cutoff time of whatever it is for month end, correct? Because a whole
Correct.
load of sales orders will turn up during the month end for you to process. So we would have the cutoff time at 2:30 or 3 o'clock or whatever it was, and then we process the orders according to that. So SLAs were always upwards of 99%, no issues, nothing. But the customer was always, some thing he wasn't happy about. So one day I called him up and I said, hey, we are meeting the service levels consistently, but you don't seem to be too happy. What's the problem? Then he said, Ravi, you should sit in the shoes of the salesperson. This salesperson that we have is typically 26, 27 years old person who's putting food on the table, okay,
Right.
for his home. And if you don't process his order because it didn't meet the cutoff time, it goes to the next month for him, which means there's a good possibility that he's not met his monthly target or he's not met his quarterly target. And so his incentives, which is 60% of his income, goes for a toss completely.
Right.
So he's always upset that though he's bringing in the order, it's going into the next month.
Right.
So when we relooked at our that particular business which we were supporting, we realized that we left behind on the table close to almost 20-30 million dollars worth of orders every month end, because it was impossible to meet everything. At the same time, they were coming after the cutoff time. So I set the team talking on this, and I said, okay, how do we help these sales guys get their incentives? Forget your SLA. How do we get the sales guy to get his incentive working? All of a sudden, within the next 2 months, this 20 million, which used to be left on the table, dropped down to less than $1 million.
Fantastic.
And the customer started getting all excited. So this outcome that the customer wants and the output which we measure ourselves by sometimes are, do not gel with each other, or they don't meet the outcome. What are your thoughts around this?
Yes, I think Ravi, it's very tricky questions. SLA, and as you rightly said, I think most of the share service center or the BPO organization would meet 99 point some percentage of SLA.
Correct.
Yeah. No, it is important. I would say having a SLA is important, especially in the initial journey as you starting the relationship or when you are setting up a share service center, it gives you a roadmap to work on. So that is very important. But I think after some time, those SLA become irrelevant. I think they become a kind of paper in the drawer. Okay, and the no CFO, CHORO, or even the customers are willing to look at it. So they want something beyond the SLA, because SLA, your timely delivery is given, your quality is given, your cost benefit is given. But it will, any organization, if you were to work on these parameters, will not sustain, because as you rightly say, if you put yourself in the shoes of a customer, which is a CFO or the CHRO or the CMO or all the procurement officers, it is given, all these things are happening, but what value, which is the outcome you bring to them, it is, I think, is very important. So I mean, when procure to pay, for example, we were doing 60 days in the capital when it was dying in plant, and we are doing it in 5 days. So I think when you do the chest beating that we are doing in 5 days, and the CFO says, so what's the big deal now? Can we do it in 2 days or 3 days? You have to constantly strive doing that. Second, also they are looking at end-to-end solutions. So it's not that you are looking at transaction processing or processing the invoice. I'm giving an example of this thing. They are looking at how you resolve customer queries, how you manage exceptions, how you do process simplification, how you do process automation to improve the speed. So that See, these organization, large organization, have got to have a competitive edge. So, and if we stick to the SLA, these organizations, the CFOs and CHROs or the CMOs will not have that competitive edge because they are constantly, investing in R&D. They are constantly, investing in the new communication and branding. So we as a shared service center also have to constantly invest, and we look at the new way of doing which helps the stakeholders in decision making, business intelligence. So all the stakeholders are looking at the business information or business intelligence to help them in decision making, to align their own strategy. So I would say yes. So in initial stages it is very important to have SLAs, but as you move forward, as you mature and evolve, I think it is the outcome, the value that you bring to the table, I think is very important, be it RPA, be it digitization, be it process simplification. Okay, these are the things which may be intangible, but they are, I think, what the stakeholders are looking at. And but having said that, it's not easy because every customer, internal, external customer, wants more and they want it in the same cost. So
Correct.
how do you manage that? I think that becomes a very tricky situation where they are depending more demanding. I think for that, typically a good written process scope is very important, so that when you go back to same thing, okay, this was on this scope, and as we increase the scope, we need more bandwidth and more resources or more time. And I think most of the time they are practical and logical. They help you out with the intention that after the benefit you're going to pass on the benefit. So every
Correct.
investment, $1 they want $2 later on, but they are willing to invest that
Correct.
kind of this thing. And I've seen all of them, the stakeholders are willing to invest in the kind of value and the outcome. The other important areas apart from I would say which they are stakeholders are concerned is the compliance. So
Spot on.
they all want to see not only that you are delivering on time, you're delivering at the right cost, but you are being compliant, because they have now hands off. They don't have people. They have
Correct.
given to you everything. So they're not only looking at transactions now. They're also seeing that you are maintaining the compliance, and you are adhering to the group or to the company policies. You're adhering to the local governing the country, bodies which are there. So these are the some of the things which have now kind of more prominent to the matured and evolved shareholders, stakeholders, than only the SLA, which is, I think, which is a thing of the past.
Excellent. One of the things I have seen working in this shared service industry, especially where if you've been shared services in multiple industry verticals itself, um, what happens is there is a challenge in terms of understanding the business, which is the first thing that you have to do, actually.
Absolutely.
What actually helped me in this journey was mine was that I'm a chartered accountant as well.
Okay.
And having
I know.
seen so many industry verticals, when you go for audit or when you're doing some consulting work, that kind of helps you bring together and things together. Your ability to look at a problem not from a single point of view, but from multiple points of view, and then being able to connect the dots. I've seen you do that as well. How do you think your background as a chartered accountant uh, has actually helped you in this industry,
Oh, I
shared
have a
services
lot of
industry?
respect and love for this profession. I think we are all here because of our great degree and the intense training that we go through. That
Correct.
audit period, that time you used to crib, or you used to. It was such a toil. You used to work for 12 to 14 hours and still, give your inter exam and final exam with those limited number of days. But I think that brought out the best in us. The whole logical thinking which was there, and the conservative approach as an accountant,
Correct.
as I said, talked about, be it compliance or be it related to the cost, and be it related to the policies and process. So these things have, and it has given a strong foundation, because at our level, everything is all about calculation by and large.
Correct.
So be it managing your internal budgets, or be it managing the cost for the customers and internal cost. So that gives you a strong foundation. So I'm very, grateful and I to this institution and the qualification which I have, which has helped me tremendously, I would say.
Because what I see, people say that chartered accountants are good. They're good in certain things, but definitely when it comes to marketing and sales and communicating effectively, they are not the best that's available there. And from what I see, most of the shared service industry is led by chartered accountants, and they all happen to be selling.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Apart from all the process work and the accounting work or finance work or whatever it is, there is a lot of sales involved in this, correct? And there's a
Absolutely.
lot of customer focus involved in this.
Correct.
So, I think that anyone who tells me that chartered accountants can't sell, can't manage customers, I think it's a huge fallacy. No more relevant.
Absolutely right, Ravi. So I think we have two important customers we are selling all the time. A is your people.
Correct.
You're always motivating them, selling them the concept, the idea, the new projects, the new efficiencies. You're always doing, and then is your customers.
Correct.
So it is that. But having said that, I would say being a profession which is literally more deep into figures, people tend to be introverts. So I would say
Introverts.
that yes, the communication skill of an MBA is obviously better than chartered accountant. But that used to be far in the past. But today, I think the accountants, the new graduates, the new chartered accountants which are coming, are very dynamic, are equivalent to those MBAs which are there. And they are, I mean, I think the course that the institute has also gone through a change. There are a lot of projects they need to do. They have to go through certain communication programs. So not nowadays, maybe it was true maybe years back, but I think today the accountants are really smart and also comparable to many of these MBAs, I would say.
Okay. Excellent.
Absolutely.
So that brings me to my final question to you, Naren. So, if you had the chance of going back in time, what would be that one advice that you will give the 30-year-old Naren?
Ah, good question. It makes me think now. It's been a long journey. But if I was to say instead of one, maybe I would say one each in professional and personal life. Okay,
Yes,
I would love to
absolutely.
do that. So on a personal life, where, and this also counts the areas where you have done well. So I mean, and where you have not done well. So that I would advise to give, or you could have done better, I would say.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So on a personal side, I would say saving money is something I
Huh.
would tell the younger generation or younger Narayan to say, start saving early. Okay. At that age, we do not have a lot of importance, and the power of compounding effect, we see it only when as you grow and you start saving. So I would say that that is one advice I would like to, if I was to revisit some of my actions, would be that, and also tell the new younger generation that start saving early in life. And second thing, which is really worked well, and I would say that I have done well, and I would love to do more of it, and I will advise. I constantly advise my teams which are working with me and on the shop floor is invest time in yourself. Okay, a 30 minutes to an
Fantastic.
hour, invest, because don't, I tell people, don't expect companies to do invest on you. You are a brand. Okay, companies invest, do their own R&D, they do their own branding, they invest on that. You need to buy books, you need to buy seminars, you need to read blogs, because the more we invest in ourselves, the more we expand. Okay, more would be our, I would say, the broader vision and also the deliveries, which ultimately is going to help us in the long term. So investing in yourself, okay, if not more, 30 minutes, is, I would say, is something I would like to advise.
Fantastic, fantastic advice. So go back, invest in yourself, and also understand investing through the mechanics of compounding.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So the first one took me by surprise. As a chartered accountant,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
thought you'd
yeah.
have.
Correct, correct. Yeah, correct. You're
So the
right.
second one is a brilliant one. It's a brilliant one, Naren, because I think investing in ourselves, in our professional selves, is a must. I am reminded of a story which was told by Saif Ali Khan actually years ago. Some newspaper person went with him to his house, and they looked at his gym, and all of a sudden they said, wow, I mean, he had spent some those days 30 lakhs on his gym. And they said, this is like a professional gym, why do you need it for an individual like you? And he says, look, I'm an actor, and in this profession I need to be extremely fit, I need to look good, and that's the investment that I have to make in myself, so that my profession and my professional career is extended. So he says this 30 lakhs is nothing. If I put this 30 lakhs and if I'm able to extend my professional career by 1 more year or 2 more years, because of this, I would have earned this money back so many times over.
Absolutely.
Well, beautifully said, how that investment in yourself goes a long way in improving your professional career and getting it better.
Absolutely,
So,
Ravi. Well said. I think you're right. I mean, where his Saif Ali Khan looks is important for, he needs gymming. For us, that knowledge, new skills, new techniques,
correct.
a new way of doing things. I think for that we have to invest in ourselves, in the books and new courses and seminars. Absolutely.
Amazing talking to you, Naren. Thank you so much for taking time out of such a busy schedule that you have, which I know, to come and talk to eVidya Loka. Thank you so much, Naren.
Thanks, Ravi. It's always pleasure talking to you, and thanks for having me here. And I wish you the very best. I am sure your this mission which you've taken up is going to reach. You're already doing a great, fantastic work, and it's going to go to the new heights. And I feel so proud of you at the organization and you have created and the work which we are doing. So it's always pleasure talking to you and great learning from you. You are a great inspiration, Ravi. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Naren.